Hey customizers, welcome to the next episode of Talking Hands Customs Nightforce tutorial. To all my subscribers, thank you very much, and if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the Gong Show! I'm just kidding. It was the last project that was a bit of a gong show, but we still emerged victorious, so we're good to go, and let's carry on with this one. So in the last episode, we tinted our canopy. It was the same process we used during the Sunbow Firebat project, but I wanted to show you that process again. The reason why is repetition helps it sink in. Also, it's a little bit intimidating to take a part that's clear that you want to remain clear and add color to it. And I wanted to show you that by using clear paints, you're good to go. You have next to zero worries. So we're good there. And now we are going to make orange. And in this case, I have my Conquest X30 for Nightforce. I call it the Night Razor. Sitting here because I really like this color, and I like matching it with my acrylic color. So this was out of a spray can. It's a specialty marking paint for doing soccer fields and construction sites and whatever else, probably graffiti. And we're going to try and match that because I really like what that color does. And we're going to do a new technique here. So normally we talked about priming and then applying your color. This time what we're going to do is we're going to add a third step to that. It's going to be priming, pre-coloring, and then final color. Why? Well, I'm glad you asked that. The simple fact is that this stuff, despite how good the model company is, or the paint company is, and how good their stuff is that I find that their fluorescent colors, anybody's fluorescent colors really, not just these guys, are a pain in the butt. They're very weak. You have to put on 14 bajillion colors just to make sure that you get good coverage and all that jazz. And really, I'm going to treat this like a clear color, if that's going to make any sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prime my orange parts white. Then I'm going to mix these two colors together, mostly Troll Slayer orange, tinted with Evil Sunz Scarlet to bring it close to this, as close as I can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray all the orange parts that color, and then I'm going to spray all of them with a top coat of this. Because it does go on translucently. It's not supposed to be a clear color, but we're going to tint our product, our pieces with this. So all the hard work's going to be done by this because it goes on nice and opaquely, and we're just going to tint it at the end with that, and that'll actually bring our parts into a good effect. And you'll see how that works at the end of the project. So anyway, bit of a weird explanation, nothing to be worried about. It's just that now we're going to add in that extra step. So it's going to be prime, pre-color, tint, and then clear coat. All right, so we've already primed the white parts that we're going to be doing here. And the name of the game with applying the orange as a highlight is exactly that. It's not a dominant color by volume, it's a dominant color by tone. So it's a brilliant orange. You could argue it's fluorescent depending on your personal style. I have used fluorescent orange paint for some other Nightforce customs when I'm using aerosol spray cans. And basically, fluorescent and brilliant orange are almost interchangeable. You're starting to get into the nitty-gritty of what makes something fluorescent vice brilliant or super brilliant or whatever. It can be a little confusing sometimes, and we always talk about how chasing colors can be the worst part of the customizing process. But in this case, I'm very happy with the look that this color provides. So I use this as my touchstone to match when I mix my paints. If you mix with specific ratios, it makes your life easier, but that's just not my style. If that makes me silly, then so be it. And when we're doing this, the reason why we're mixing red and orange together is while the color is orange, it's not a pure orange. So if I hold this jar, or this tub, or whatever you want to call it, up to the nose, you can see they're not the same color. And you can say, well, no, one's a different color of orange than the other, which is true. But in order to mix this color, this orange needs to be a little bit darker, okay? And what I mean by that is that in this case, it has some red in it. That's what makes it darker. You don't add black to this, you'll get a nasty looking orange, is that there's red in this color. So I've got the nose here so I can show you how I'm gonna do this. Last time what I did was I mixed it off camera where I would put the orange in, put a couple of drops of red, mix it in, and then I'd walk over to my Conquest X30 and I'd hold my cup up to the nose, so to speak, and compare it. that's just the way I like doing things. If you want to match it and write down the ratio or how many drops of red vice how much orange you want to do in there, go for it. It's certainly probably maybe in the long run a smarter move, but I just like doing things this way because it forces me to practice my color eye. And that's just, can I visually match the color to another color? Because I'm a glutton for punishment. So what we've got here is the selection of parts that we're going to paint orange. I've got the front lasers, I've got the rear engine thruster, and I've got the ordnance. So or the other weapons. Excuse me. So I selected those pieces because on the custom, it gives us balance. So we've got orange in the front, orange in the middle, and orange on the back. And that's what I found works the best. It's based off of the Night Boomer, which is the Night Force Sky Striker, where the nose cone is orange, hence this. The weapons are orange and the engine thrusters are orange. So I'm taking that exact formula and I'm translating it onto the Firebat. I did it with the Conquest X30 as well, because for me that's my chosen aesthetic. I'm trying to release, well, I'm not trying to release anything. I'm trying to recreate, is the word I was looking for, that Hasbro aesthetic. So in this case, we're trying to be as true to the original form as possible. So that's all we got to do. So let's get some orange in here, and let's get some paint on these parts. Just give it a shake first. Citadel Air, if you haven't seen any of the other videos, it's the same as Citadel paints, except when it says air on it, it's premixed for airbrush. If you're hand brushing, then I would use just the regular Citadel paint, because pre-thinned airbrush paints are always thinner. Therefore, you got to put more on them. They're usually more runny, etc., because they are technically designed to be put through an airbrush without thinning. It's kind of like the self-cleaning oven, right? It never really cleans itself. So let's get some orange in there, and this will probably take more than one coat because we want this to look like it was plastic that was dyed orange and then poured into the mold and then release the piece. So we want to make sure that our coverage is uniform and opaque. So I'm going to take a stab at how much I think I'll need. Maybe a little bit more. Always make more than you need, especially when you're mixing paints. I find that even if you're using exact ratios, because you don't know exactly how much of that paint it's going to take to cover these the way you want to cover. Even if you're using exact ratios, make a larger batch, because then you don't have to go through and try and make it again. If you're eyeballing it like I like to do, I always make more than I need, because you don't want it to be mixed in the wrong way. And again, that might be an argument for using exact ratios, but like I said, that's not how I roll. So what I am going to do now is, with the Evil Sunz Scarlet, I am going to use a pipette, a little dropper. And with any good mixing, there's my pipette. I'm going to use a paintbrush, because cocktail sticks don't always do the job, and they're not forgiving enough, whereas the bristles in here will actually help mix all the paint together a lot more nicely. So, got my orange there, and it's just going to be, I know it's going to take more than one drop, so I'm going to put a few drops in. There we go. Let's go with 4. Oh, it's not going to come out as drops either. Do your best to try and make it come out in drops. There's a few there. The rule for mixing is that, well, I don't want to say it's complicated, but you have to look at the colors you're mixing. If the two colors are very similar in tone, you might be more of a 50-50 kind of ratio, if you will. With a bright color like orange and a strong color like red, might be a little bit less, because you're just trying to knock down the brightness of the orange to get that color. You're not trying to build it up, and that's why we're starting with the orange. If it was an orange red, I would probably still start with the orange, because the red's the stronger color. And that's honestly something that just takes practice. So don't be flustered if you go through a lot of paint trying to learn the way colors interact with each other, because that's how I did it. There's videos on YouTube probably if you learn how to mix color. Check those out, and Maybe that'll help you out, but I like to learn by doing. So now I'm just going to stir those together. And you can already see that that red is knocking back that orange. It's toning it down, and it's changing its hue a little bit because it's a different color. And there we go. There we go. And there's some fun stuff you can do with colors. So if you want to look at videos on the color wheel and all that stuff, certainly go ahead. I've seen artists do beautiful paintings with only 5 colors in their palette. It's crazy. Sometimes even just 2 or 3. It's nuts. Mad respect to that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up to the nose, and not sure how it's translated. Well, I can see it on the camera there, but in real life it's close, but it still needs more red. And that's why we're doing it a little bit at a time, right? It's easier to creep up to the answer than to blast a bunch of red in there and then go, oh, that was too much, then put some orange in there to try and cancel it out, especially if one color is stronger than the other. Like white and black, for example. If you were trying to make a gray, you put a bunch of white in and then little drops of black until you knock that white down to the gray you want. Whereas if you put in a bunch of black, it's going to take way more white to fight that black to get it back up to that color. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, Taco Sandbox. Yeah. So let's put the brush off to the side and let's get a little bit more red in there. Just a little bit. So I'm going to do a couple more drops, and now we're going to edge our way towards that color. We're going to sneak up on it. So just a little bit. We're almost there. There's 3 drops. That wasn't fully on camera, but well, it is what it is. 3 drops. Put that down. Let's close that up. And let's stir it up. Let's see what we got. There we go. Ooh, I think we got it. We might have it. Let's see. I always say that, and then it's like, well, no. I'm gonna hold it up to a missile here just off camera and see. Because I'm also looking at a round shape, right? And the way the light bounces off that round shape can affect what you're looking at. I think a little bit more red, just a little bit. And this is the walking it up to that color process. It may seem tedious, but well, it's just the way it is. You got to respect the process, right? A little more in there. I'm gonna go with another 3 drops. They're goopy drops, but they're 3 drops. All right. There we go. A little bit more, right? We're just adding in a little bit more, giving it a good stir, right? We want those colors to fully interact. You can stir something very briefly, and chances are on the surface it might be blended, but the rest of the streaks of the other color are still in the bottom of the cup there. So you always want to give it a nice good stir. I think. Dare I say we're there? Yeah, we're there. So I'm going to go ahead with that mix there. So that was, what, 6-7 drops of red paint into that much orange paint? So there's your official scientific ratio. Or mathematical, whatever. I'm not a doctor. So now we're going to move the finished X30 out of the picture, because we've finished with our reference. It'll be nearby, though. Always keep your references nearby. And now, the other tool, if I've never mentioned these in a video before, these little clamps, they're spring-loaded, they come in all different shapes, well, all different sizes, they're all the same shape. And they're quite useful, and they're cheap. So they have movable ends on them. I don't know what you would call that exactly. But you can use it to flip them out and grab a very fine piece like that if you wanted to. And I use them for holding and painting. As you can see, I've painted on these clips before. But they are definitely a valuable asset to have. It makes for painting small parts a lot easier. And, well, that's really all there is to it. I've been using these things for a long time. In this case, I may or may not hold these with a clamp, because what you'll have to do is, much like when I primed them, you hold it with a clamp here, you paint most of it the color you need it, and then when it's dry, you paint the part, you unclamp it, and then just hold it and paint that part. So I'll probably do something like that. I have a bunch of these little clips for that exact purpose. So we're just gonna carry on. And you can hold clips with other clips. So if you want to clip something but then hold it up in the air, just put it in another clip and there you go. You got this funky sort of, what was that stuff called? Meccano or Tinker Toys. Yeah, it's like Tinker Toys, just weird shapes. There's a blast of nostalgia for you, aside from the fact that we're painting a fire bat. Also, too, to show you the curing of the canopy overnight. This is what we did in the last episode. We tinted a canopy. So on camera, it may not seem that dark, but when I hold it there, it's actually the tone I want. And the good news is that because of the forgiving nature of the products I use, the Tamiya Smoke and the Pledge Future Floor Polish, I can darken that even more if I want. But I tried it out on the fuselage and I like where it's at. So there is our tinted and protected canopy. Which I'm sitting on the Firebat right now, which is getting exciting because now that you can see it with the tinted canopy and the gray wings, it's like, oh my god, just get the orange on and we're done. But no, that's not the case. So now that we have that in there, I'm going to add a little bit of thinner to it. I know it says that it's pre-thinned, but I've tried to shoot it through, and even just when you pour it in the cup there, if you saw that, it's a little on the thick side. So I'm going to put some airbrush thinner in there just to make things a little more nice. And I'll stir that with that same brush. All right, it's all about the prep work. I could show you nothing but videos of me spray painting or airbrushing things, and it's like, great, but what about all the background work? It's like a movie, right? You don't see all the work that went into making that movie, you just see the movie. Not that you want to spoil the illusion. Let's give that a whirl. Might be a little thick. But the one thing, my pet peeve with working with an airbrush is that if the paint goes on too thin, then you got to work it out again and wait for it to dry and all sorts of stuff. I like having it come out where it's, you know, it goes on wet and it dries very quickly. That's the bonus with acrylics. And yeah. And we got our Lazy Susan here so we can spray without touching. But I'm going to clamp some of these actually because I don't mind. Because this orange color here will actually go over this white rather well. And the reason why I primed these in white and not black like the rest of the project is because it'll help with the vibrancy of this color. I would have to put on way more of this to overcome a black primer, but white primer makes for smarter work. And we're all about smarter work, right? All right. And I think we're good to go. So let's pour this up. Let's get the mask on. Again, watch your eyes for the bright flash of the spray booth coming on. And let's get some paint on. And in the meantime, we just have to let that dry for a bit before I can paint the unpainted parts. So I like using these little clamps. They come in large bags, different sizes. And I like it to do my detail painting like this. You could use alligator clips or whatever else. But they're plastic, they're cheap, and if they break, they're easily replaceable. And so what I'm doing is I'm using them to hold my part while I spray it from all the different angles, and then all I'm going to do is once this is dry, I will remove the clip. I won't re-clip it because the paint's still technically curing. I'll just hold it with my gloved fingers, and then I will paint the part that's unpainted. So as you can see, most of these bombs are already covered in an experimental orange. What I do like about pre-basing with orange when you're doing a fluorescent color is fluorescent colors are relatively weak, so technically you would put them over a white to get the most vibrancy out of them, but in this case, I'd already primed in white, I did some orange on there as you saw, and then I put the fluorescent coat over top of that, and I find that works very well for this sort of color, especially given the fact that we're not going for super fluorescent orange. It's this red-orange fluorescent color that's part of Night Force. And results will vary depending on the photos you look at and stuff. Some of it just looks plain old red, even though I know it's not. I do own the Nightshade, which is the Night Force Shark, and it is very much a very brilliant or fluorescent orange, depending on your terminology and point of view. So in this case, I've done a check up against my Conquest X30, and I'm happy that we are on the right track. Does that mean I'm beholden to the X30? No, I just like the way it looks. I like the orange that's on there. So I'm trying to match it as much as I can on each new project, just so I can keep some semblance of unity. Not to say that you can't have those variances, right? We've talked about it with Sky Patrol and any other G.I. Joe vehicle. Because of the chemicals and the plastic and UV rays and all that sort of scientific stuff, some of these colors will change over time, and not every vehicle will change the same way, right? How much time was it left in the sun? Was it in a moldy basement for 20 years? You know, blah, blah, blah. So that's to give what that does is that gives us some artistic freedom. If you want to have the exact same colors for all of your vehicles all the time, then I recommend writing down all the colors you use, making sure that you have a good enough supply of them, and then measuring exact ratios. I'm not so concerned about that. I'm very casual when it comes to that sort of thing. But not so casual as to say, screw it, let's make Night Force purple, right? I have my parameters for my left and right of how much off course I can go. And while it might be less than some, it's more than others, right? And that's the best part of it because it's an art form and you can do what you like. So now we're just waiting for this stuff to dry, and because it's a gloss coat, it's going to take a little bit longer. So we're going to use the magic of technology to make it seem like it's dry in the next 2 seconds. And just like that, they're dry enough. Anyway, dry enough. So, look at that, I got Cheetos fingers. Anyway, all right, so now I'm going to remove the clip, and you can see there that there's some unpainted parts there. So I'm just going to get all of these set up. And we're going to paint the unpainted parts of the fins. Those are completely unpainted, so there's no orange on there. I'm going to tempt fate here and see what happens. I'll probably get spanked for it, but we'll see. A little bit of adventure. Never hurt anybody. Well, I'm sure it did sometimes, but we're going to do it anyway. Let's do it live. And now we just wait for that to dry. So there was a perfect case in point, if you will, of why I like to undercoat my fluorescents now. It's something relatively new that I've picked up, certainly after I started doing this channel. And it certainly pays off, I think. Using these fluorescent colors and gloss colors has always been a pain in the butt. And it being a fluorescent and a gloss means that it's going to be a little finicky. And there we go with all the orange bits touched up. So now we're gonna do just a little bit of checking here because it's fun and exciting. A light mock-up to see how that's gonna look. And I think that's gonna be just what the doctor ordered. So there it is with the gray and everything else too. And the tinted canopy. So yeah, we're on the right track. We are on the right track. Okay, so now that we've done the canopy and the orange bits, the next thing we got to do is clear coat everything. So I'm going to try a new product in a manner of speaking. I've used this company's paint before. They're called Mission Models. They're out of Utah, I think. Yeah, Salt Lake City, Utah. And I quite like them. So right now, they're the only company I could find that makes a semi-gloss clear. And overall, that is my preferred clear coat for everything because it makes it helps the plastic look come through. So I'm going to give them a whirl for the first time on this project. I'm not even going to test it off camera. I'm going to do it live with you. So if things go pear-shaped, then welcome to it. I'm certainly playing with fire here, but they are a good quality product. And what I like about this one in particular is that when you get with the gloss coats and stuff, this is a semi-gloss, because they're that thick gloss type of thing, just like with gloss paint. This one actually comes with a mixing ball, so you can kind of hear it in there, which helps make sure that everything gets a nice, good mixture in it. So Mission Model Semi-Gloss, going to use it for the first time on this project. So I'm going to clear coat this off camera, but I'll show it to you. Well, who knows? I'll see what I'm going to do in the next couple of minutes anyway. So we're going to try this, and then we're going to come into the closing phases of the project. So all the orange bits are very good. Like I said, the key, I think, to using these fluorescent colors, because they're so I don't even know if watery is the right phrase for it, but they're such a pain in the butt, is to pre-coat with orange. In this case, I used Troll Slayer Orange with 1 or 2 drops of Evil Sunz Scarlet here, just to knock down the orange a bit. And then I put the fluorescent over top of it, has got me the color I want. And the fluorescent orange is the most important bit, but it's such a pain in the butt to go on. So doing that actually makes it better. You put some paint on and then you're tinting the paint with that fluorescent color. So without further ado, why don't we wrap this one up? I'll say thanks again to all my subscribers, and we will see you in the next episode with clear coating and stickers. So in the meantime, be safe, have fun.